which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Agendas of today's meeting are on the wall at the entrance to chambers. Please remember to turn or silence all your cell phones. The Municipal Code Enforcement Board consists of 7 members who are appointed by the City Council. We serve voluntarily. It is this board's intention to promote, protect, and improve the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Clearwater by providing this equitable, effective, and inexpensive method of enforcing certain codes within the city. The board considers new business items in 2 parts. First, the violation, and then affirmative relief. Formal rules of evidence do not apply. Each side is limited to 15 minutes, and the board may grant additional time. All proceedings will be conducted in a calm, civil manner. Individuals who conduct themselves otherwise will be asked to leave. If necessary, they will be escorted from the chambers. Now I ask all who plan to speak today to please rise and be sworn in by the clerk.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout your entire testimony? Yes, I do. Thank you.
Our first order of business is to review and approve the minutes of last month's meeting. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion is approved. Is there a second? Second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. Minutes are approved. Agenda item 3, citizens to be heard regarding items not on the agenda. Is there anyone here to speak to items not on today's agenda? All right, moving right along. New business items. First item of business, 4.3, continued from January 27th, 2021, case 07-21, find respondents Clearwater Chestnut Associates, LLC at 818 Chestnut Street in violation of code for signage without permits, and issue an order with the compliance deadline and fine if compliance is not met. Is there anyone here to speak to this case? Not looking like. Okay, board, if we can have a first.
I move to find the respondent in violation of the code as referred to in the affidavit in this case.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, first and second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries.
Hello, Board. Daniel Knight, Sign Inspector with the City of Clearwater. This is 818 Chestnut Street for case 7-21, and it is for signage erected without permits. The City is asking compliance on or before March 27th of 2021, or a fine of $150 per day that the violation continues to exist. We're asking the Board to authorize the following. After 3 months from the recordation date of such lien, if the fines and fees remain unpaid, the City's Attorney's Office is authorized to foreclose, collect, or settle such lien using any legal or equitable remedies available under the law. Compliance can be met for this violation of signage erected without permits by removing all unpermitted signage and materials that were added to the permitted sign. If new permanent signage is desired to be erected at the property, a sign permit will be required. And I'll just go over some photos real quick. I guess it would help if I was in the proper screen. All right. This is a snippet of Google Maps from May of 2009. The arrow is showing the sign that was originally permitted. This is April 2014, same sign. April 2017, it's the same sign. And then sometime in between that 2017 and 2019, a new sign was put up without permits. This is just to show that that old sign did have a permit to be there, and it actually allowed up to 27 square feet of sign face area, which is more than the minimum sign program allows now. This was on the initial complaint of 8/7 of 2020. This was on December 3rd. The plywood kind of got broken down, and then on January 21st of this year, just last week, I did speak to the property and business owner. He feels that he should be able to keep the sign. He says that what he does for the city is, it's good work, so he should be able to keep it there. I tried explaining to him that any added material to a sign is new signage without permits. He said that he wanted to come and speak today, so I'm not sure why he isn't here. But if you look at this picture, towards the top of the sign, there's white poles. Those white poles are, according to the owner, are the original poles from the original sign. So if the sign is still back there behind everything, all of that could come down and that old sign would still be permitted, and he could change out the face panel to advertise for his business. No permits are required, and that old permit would still be intact. But the way that this is, the sign is over 40 square feet, and that's even greater than what our max comprehensive sign program would allow.
Any questions from the board? Was the process ever started at all for the next sign?
No.
No, not at all. And help educate some that may not know, what does it say it costs to start that permit process?
If it's through the comprehensive sign program, it's a $150 fee. If it's through the minimum sign program, it's getting the sign contractor, getting them to submit it, so whatever those costs are involved,
Right.
and then whatever the cost of the permit is, which I don't know. But like I said, if that added material was taken down and that old sign's still there, you wouldn't even need a permit.
Right.
It could stay the way it is if you wanted to repaint it, reface the sign. It all would fall under that old permit.
Board, no other additional questions?
No.
Want to give him your recommendation, Daniel?
Yes. Compliance on or before March 27th of 2021, or the fine of $150 per day that the violation continues to exist.
Seems pretty easy. Board, if we could have a motion, we can move forward with this one.
I move to enter an order requiring the respondent to correct the violations on or before March 27th, 2021. If the respondent does not comply by that date, the board may order a fine of $150 per day per violation for each day each violation continues to exist. If fines and fees remain unpaid, 3 months after such lien is filed, the city is authorized to foreclose, collect, or settle such lien.
Thank you.
Second.
First is made and second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Knight. Moving on, agenda item 4.5, case 1721, fine respondents Huang Family Properties, Inc. at 2456 Gulf to Bay Boulevard in violation of code for prohibited signage, and issue an order with the compliance deadline and fine if compliance is not met. Is there anyone here to speak to this case?
Don't believe so,
No.
and the city is asking for a declaration compliance has been met
Great.
for this violation.
Thank you, Board. If we could have a declaration?
In violation?
A declaration. Yeah.
I move to find the respondent was in violation of the code as referred to in the affidavit. In this case, the violation was corrected prior to today's hearing, and to enter an order that no fine be imposed. If the respondent repeats the violation, the board may order a fine of up to $500 for each day the violation continues to exist.
A motion is made and seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Staff, this is where we were asking earlier about... Thank you. This is where we were asking earlier about agenda items 6.1 and 6.2 that will have council present. In the past, the precedent has been to allow that case to go ahead and present since council is present. Are we good with that, or? Okay. Board, we're going to move quickly, flip pages so we can move on with this while council's present to agenda items 6.1 and 6.2. We're going to take both those together. However, the only thing that we'll have to ensure is that we do separate motions for each one, agenda item 6.1 and 6.2. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. Brian Unk, 625 Court Street, on behalf of the petitioner, Gilbert Janelli. Can you all hear me with my mask on, or would you prefer me to take it off? I'd prefer to keep it on if possible. So, thank you very much. And Madam Clerk, is the Elmo operational
No, unfortunately, you gotta use the other side, yeah.
over here?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Mr. Chair, board members, this is a lien reduction request related to two parcels, 1343 Cleveland and 1871 Douglas. These cases are from 2016 and 2017. I am happy to say that all of Dr. Ginelli's properties within the city of Clearwater are in compliance. There are no notices of violation or active code enforcement cases. I think it's extremely important to emphasize that the only cases that are before you today are 2916 related to 1343 Cleveland and 12816 related to 1871 Douglas. And both of those properties have been in compliance and have remained in compliance without any additional fines or orders of this board since 2017. The Douglas property was declared in compliance prior to your board meeting on November 16th, 2016. So the Douglas property here has been compliant for approximately 5 years and has not had any additional code enforcement issues. The Cleveland property was brought into compliance and declared in compliance on November 15th, 2017. There was one hiccup in 2020 with the Cleveland property, but it was complied with prior to your hearing, and it was withdrawn by Inspector Knight. So we're talking about very minor issues. I'm not here to excuse the past violations. The past violations have been punished, they've been rectified, and a heavy toll has been taken on Dr. Ginelli. One question you might have is, why did it take so long to get from compliance in 2016 and compliance in 2017 to this code, this lien reduction request? And the answer to that is that we had the McDonald's site on US 19. Your rules state that you cannot reduce a lien on any property unless all of the properties owned by that person are in compliance. So we could not come and ask for a lien reduction on these properties until the McDonald's property was brought into compliance. I'm not going to relitigate that. The city eventually foreclosed on that McDonald's site. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. It was the old McDonald's across the street from the Barnes & Noble on US 19. That McDonald's, I think it's important to note, is probably one of the few McDonald's in the area that went out of business, and the reason it went out of business is because of the overpass construction on US 19 that we all know about from, years and years and years ago. So eventually, in March of 2019, Dr. Ginelli hired me to try to resolve all of these issues for him, to try to make sure all the properties came into compliance, and to make sure that he got to a position where he could divest himself of his properties. So that's another key important issue. The whole purpose of code enforcement is compliance, and we've all heard that over the years. And it's not punitive. It's not to tie the property up forever. And we're at a point now where Dr. Ginelli cannot sell any properties that he owns. He can't divest himself of any properties that he owns because he's got these two outstanding liens on these two properties. So to perpetuate the lien or to reduce the lien to an amount that is not equitable or that Dr. Ginelli just simply can't afford to pay today would frustrate the whole purpose of eventually getting rid of the liens and making sure that he can sell the property. And I do want to note that Dr. Ginelli is under contract to sell the Douglas property, but he can't sell it, he can't close on it until he has clear title, unencumbered title. So I'm not going to go back through the whole history. There were several hearings. There had been several discussions about when we got to this point, the liens would be reduced to administrative costs and the city would support that. I understand the city, my understanding, and I haven't spoken to the city directly, is that they're going to be asking for 10%. If you combine the 10% of the two cases, that would be $42,000. Dr. Ginelli's already paid $100,000 in fines that the city council unanimously approved as a settlement for the US 19 site. So if the idea is to punish him for the US 19 site, he's already been punished more than any other individual in the history of the city by paying $100,000 on that property. That's a lot of money. Dr. Ginelli is an ophthalmologist. He's not AutoNation. He's not Espacio International. He's not some of these big corporations that run up these huge fines. And he's not made of $100,000 and $40,000 here and there. $100,000 was a ton of money. He's also paid over $120,000 to bring all the properties into compliance and on legal fees as a result of the litigation. And as you all know, one of the delays is when you get into litigation, things slow down. Litigation doesn't go quick. And so we could not come back to you until we got through the litigation. And then, of course, with COVID, there was only a handful of Code Enforcement Board hearings in 2020. So we're here today to say respectfully that we would request this to be reduced to administrative costs. I believe the administrative costs are about $3,800. I am personally not aware of any lien reduction request to administrative costs that has ever been denied. And I'm not aware of any lien reduction, that the person was eligible, that the person met the criteria of being in complete compliance. I've seen people come in prematurely before they're in compliance. And I've never seen a request by the city staff to reduce the fine in an amount more than the administrative costs. So we're asking that it be reduced to administrative costs. I do want to point out, this is not uncommon. This is 1100 Cleveland. You all remember that eyesore? Espacio International, a billion-dollar multinational company, got their fines reduced to administrative costs in that case. I would respectfully submit to you that in this case, you know, these two properties, while they had violations, they were not eyesores. You know, they didn't really significantly detract from the neighboring property values or cause significant problems to the city. So we're requesting that Dr. Ginelli be treated equally and consistently. And I know Mr. Menino and Member Bray heard this back in June. So hopefully we'll be able to answer any questions you have. And again, we respectfully request that the board reduce it to administrative costs in light of the change in behavior and the fact that these specific properties have been in compliance from 2016 and 2017. And I'll answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Cal. Board, any questions?
Will we be hearing the cities?
Yes, absolutely. Instead of having us go back and forth and ask, I can keep having them up. So if there are any questions, now's the time to ask them. No? No? Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Staff?
Good afternoon, Board. Ted Peaslack, Code Enforcement Manager with the City of Clearwater. After much discussion and review of the cases and the files, let me just explain first that these cases occurred long before I came to the city, so I had to refer to my inspectors and their cases and everything that they went through with it. Some of what's been represented, most of what has been represented is accurate. However, some of these cases do actually go back to October of 2015 when notices were sent that were then cleared up in October of 2017. So you're talking 2 full years of battling trying to get this into compliance. That battle consists of constant calls into this office where we're trying to explain to residents that are complaining about these properties that we're doing everything we can, but there's a process. We did, as far as I know, try to work with Dr. Ginelli on some of these issues. I've spoke with him. He's had some conversations that I'm not familiar with, but and some hurdles, obviously, that he had to get through, but I don't think there's any question that these properties were neglected and in disrepair for some period of time, at least 1.5 years and up to 2 years. And as a result of that, and in trying to be fair to Dr. Ginelli, we came to the conclusion that we felt it would be proper to reduce the fines and liens 90%. The total being $420,750 is what he has on the books, would be reduced to $42,075 plus costs. My costs that I have calculated here for both investigative on our end and the clerk's office is $3,362.40. So the total we would be looking for, as I speak for the city, would be $45,437.40.
Any questions from the board? I have a couple questions. I guess, the lien reduction come up and they're all completely their own beast and their own animal. And sometimes as a board, our immediately thoughts are safety, correct? Are we protecting children? Are we allowing homeless in there and vagrants to live there? Is it a short-term rental that we see quite often where we have an entire neighborhood that hasn't slept for 4 years and they don't feel safe because people in and out and they're dealing with trash and noise? Some of our other ones that we hear are short-term rentals where we're allowed to fine them X amount, but they're still renting the property for more than X amount and they're still making money, right? And so I think and when those come before us, the precedent has always been set that you can't really reduce that lien at that point because there's been above and beyond damage done to a lot, right, including safety. I don't know, hearing this, I understand where the city's coming from, but again, the ultimate goal is compliance, correct? And it's not a monetary driver to make money for the city, as I assume, and that to be correct, that it's more there to deter behavior, to protect the city, to protect the citizens, the neighborhoods. My initial, thought in this is, how can we make that almost a win-win for both sides, keep both sides as whole as possible, and put this tangled web of history where we're, hearing things 2014, 2015 that's gone back so long. How can we put that to bed and be able to move on? I think it would be in the city's best interest if the properties were sold and that owner is no longer attached to those properties. Now we can all move forward. So, my initial reaction and thought is administrative cost would do that. It would cover our time and trouble as the city. It would allow this property to move into different hands, would allow us to put it behind us, and at the same time, not hit a citizen and a business owner with whether it's a deserving fee or not, a large sum of $45,000 when we're, learning that the couple properties already we've talked, in addition of $220,000, $230,000, $300,000 in fines. I've been on this board for almost 4 years. I've never heard anything of the sort be so high, but they obviously costs add up. So that's kind of my thought, and I don't know if anybody else on the board has any questions or comments. Staff, do you have a comment?
Yeah, real quick. Board, my name is Matt Smith. I'm a senior assistant city attorney. I'm currently assigned to the police department. I used to be assigned to this board 3 or 4 years ago, so I can kind of speak to some of the history as far as lien reduction requests go, and specifically some of the ones that were mentioned. I think the argument that Mr. Onks was making is that Mr. Ginelli has paid the most fines of any individual. If that's the argument he's making, that might be correct. I'm not sure, but I just want to speak about some of the other things that were mentioned. So, Espacio, 1100 Cleveland, I handled that, and that was a lien reduction request, and it was kind of a brokered arrangement where they had to come up with a buyer and they had to develop the building, and as you know, that happened. And when that happened, they took a loss, and I don't remember the exact number. It was between $2 or $4 million, so there was some pain there. But the city didn't need to recoup that money. We just wanted there to be a beautiful building, and now there is. Cedar House. Cedar House was a short-term rental, old Clearwater Bay, and that, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the fine for that one was $30,000 or $40,000, and it got reduced on appeal to like $9,000. And then the church, there was the flag building. They had, and that was before my time. That was Attorney Soto, and I guess when they were constructing the flag building, there was a hole in the building, and they put a tarp up, and so that was a violation. And they ended up paying $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000. It was $400,000. Okay. So the city has collected substantial fines in the past. That's not a question. And another thing that I heard was that the city has never asked that a fine be reduced to something less than the maximum, but not all the way to the minimum or to administrative costs. And I personally know that has happened. I can't remember the details as I sit here today, but it certainly has happened. And so the board is empowered to take whatever creative actions it needs to address whatever property is before it. And the city is asking that you do that today.
Comments? Yes, ma'am.
Before we put a motion, full disclosure, Dr. Ginelli and I are friends. our boys played baseball together. We do not have any financial ties. And so he knows more than anyone here that one of the challenges that I am very concerned with is the chronic vacant commercial properties. I think that the impact on the local community is significant, as well as other negative impacts on the surroundings. And he knows that it's been one of my thorn on my sides. I think the easy thing would be to be punitive, but I'm looking at the end goal, and the end goal is that I want those properties to be filled with robust commercial entities. And with these liens, that hinders that. I do understand the city's perspective, but I don't want to cut my nose to spite my face, and I want those properties to be filled. So I'm willing to put up motion for administrative fees only if Dr. Janelli, on public record, promises to sell all your commercial vacant properties to people, to those that will fill it with robust commercial entities, and to resist the temptation to sell to those who are just going to sit on the properties again. Because the impact is significant, and I need those, the city needs those buildings filled with commercial, robust businesses.
I don't think Dr. Janelli has the ability to make that type of promise to the city or anyone else. He cannot ensure what his buyers are going to do with the property.
There's indicators.
I mean, he doesn't even have a buyer for the other building.
Did you have a comment?
I would ask, if I could, whatever the board's decision is, that it's clear that it's for these two cases on these two properties, because he does have a stop work order open on 1343 Cleveland that has not been addressed through the building department, and we don't want him to think that that is inclusive in this settlement, so to speak, and Woodring Avenue, another property of his that exists, that they are not part and parcel of whatever your decision is today.
Do you have another question now?
Yes,
What's
sir.
the breakdown of each property of what's owed on each, administrative and total?
Administrative or the actual fine, the current fine, and
Yeah, administrative and,
you,
1343 Cleveland is, the fine and lien is $324,500. The investigative costs are $676. The clerk's administrative cost is $771.20. The lien and fines on Douglas are $96,250. The investigative costs are $1,144, and the clerk's administrative cost is $771.20.
thank you.
Any additional questions from the board for staff? No?
The 45,000 and change that for the city, that's a 90% reduction of the total?
Yes.
So we're talking about, he's already down to a 90% reduction, and now we're talking about, you're requesting a further reduction of that, correct?
well, just so you're clear, that's the city's request.
Right.
I mean, it's clearly up to this board. The only thing that this board has adopted is a policy that you will not reduce any fines below the administrative cost. So that would be, the bottom line on it. And then the range is what you do on this case, as any case, is that you hear the facts behind it and make a determination. But that's solely up to you. The city is saying to reduce it to 90%. Dr. Janelli is requesting it down to administrative costs.
Board questions? Counsel, can you step back up? I do, we've been on the board for a while, and I do recall these properties coming up before us before, and I think what was mentioned, I don't know if it was by board, I don't necessarily know if it was by staff, but we were pretty firm with the property owner on how we wanted those things to be rectified, right? We want compliance to be met, and regardless of what property it is, fix them. And I think there was, it was a verbal, there was nothing signed, but it was said as, if from this date forward you get into those properties that we're discussing and you rectify those situations and compliance is met for the next time you sit before us, then we as a board will go to administrative fines, and it costs. And I don't know if that was, if that I would assume it's on record on what was said. Council probably remembers, far better than me, but I think that was the stance the board took at that time. I do say thank you as you come back before us for as long as it's been. It's nice for us as a board to hear compliance has been met. Now, regardless of what else is behind that and all the undertones, but that's what we always want to hear. Obviously, a declaration would be much nicer, and for council to come up before us and say, we worked it out with the city, we've shaken hands, we're all done, and move on, and it's all behind us. But unfortunately, here we're talking about that percentage. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just to address a couple of things real quickly. So from our perspective, the reduction of 90% to $45,000 is a $45,000 lien. It doesn't get rid of the lien. And the problem is, even a $45,000 lien on 1871 Douglas and on 1343 Cleveland is a significant amount of what those properties are worth. So you'd have to come up with a buyer that was willing to pay $45,000 over market. So respectfully, I think the lien is in place to compel compliance. And as Mr. Salzman and I think said, you're just talking about these two cases. These are the only two liens that are left out there. They apply to all of his properties, though, except for the McDonald's site, because that's subject to a settlement agreement with the city council. So we feel like compliance on these two properties was met 2017, 2016. It's been sustained without any further punitive fines or orders. I believe his attitude has changed. In his settlement agreement with the city for the McDonald's site, he has to either divest himself of it or occupy it within 18 months of the settlement agreement, which was last May, I think. So he's coming up on that. He does have a contract for the Douglas site, and he is committing to either making those active beneficial uses or divesting himself of these two sites. But he can't do it until we get down to administrative costs. And I do have the minutes from the June 24th, 2020 meeting, and it said support was expressed for charging administrative costs with an understanding that he not allow any future violations on his properties, which is the situation we're in today. And then I don't want to go back to 2016. It's not worth relitigating everything. So thank you and appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Council. Questions, comments from the board?
Well, my opinion is, it is a lien now, but it's a result of fines that went on for 1.5 to 2 years of non-compliance, where they were working with this Dr. Janelli, who is a commercial property owner, and we've already reduced it by 90%. That I understand that they're looking for just administrative costs, but I think that we should come with a number that's more substantial, around maybe somewhere in between the administrative and the city's already reduced amount, somewhere around maybe $20,000. That's my opinion.
I understand where you're coming from. I think we would probably sit in here all afternoon if we were to completely untangle the reasons why, right? And we're hearing a number and it's a X amount, and then to say 90% taken off, and that sounds, wonderful, but what about the process that we took to get to that 90? And was there a buyer on the table that, why would I, put a new roof, a new fence, and new siding when a buyer's closing in 6 months, and he is going to do all that, or she's going to do that to the building? I think, just hearing a number and reducing a number is one thing, but there's a whole, like we said, a tangled web of history and reasons why. I don't necessarily know if Dr. Janelli was just sitting on the property saying, I don't want to listen to what you say, the city. My building can fall apart if it wants to, and you can keep tacking on fines. I don't necessarily know if that was the attitude that was approached on the property, but I'm sure if we continued to ask questions and went on with this all day, you'd find out there's probably valid reasons on why those fines got to that point versus just complete neglect and disrespect, if that makes sense. Any other comments from the board?
Can I make a motion of a number?
Anybody can make a motion, absolutely.
I move to enter in order reducing the amount of the lien to $25,000, inclusive of administrative fees, costs payable within 30 days. Is that fair?
Okay, so,
And then we have to identify,
right, these are separate cases, so that if you're going to do some type of amount, you need to state which case for which amount.
Well, in that case, for case 2916, and I'll reduce that amount to 12,500 for the amount.
I'm sorry, what amount?
12,500. It's being split.
so I have a first, and just for clarity, Board, we're discussing agenda item 6.1, and the motion put forward that has not been seconded is a fine of $12,500 solely for 6.1.
I second it.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Nay. Motion carries. How many? There were
I'm sorry, how many?
two nays and
Who voted nay? I'm sorry.
nay. You, aye, yes. Four ayes and 2 nays.
Who's the other nay? And
Yeah.
who else?
Myself.
Oh, us.
That's okay.
Got it. Thank you.
So now you're looking at agenda item 6.2, since that was solely 6.1.
So can I make a motion for the administrative cost for that property?
Mr. Chair, can I address the board on this? So now that we're on 6.2,
That's up to the board.
well, we're on agenda item 6.2.
Yeah.
May I address the board?
Before we move on to 6.
Wait. We have, before you have any, we have a motion currently to reduce it to administrative costs. Is that your motion?
We're talking about 6.2, because 6.2
Yeah.
has been decided.
Yes, 6.2.
Yeah, so 6.2, I was making a motion for the administrative cost.
Okay, and then do we know that breakdown of it? Because we've got a total of $3,362.40, but that was a combined, I believe.
I think this is 19, 15, 20, $1,915.20.
So you can make that motion if you want for 6.2 with $1,915.20 being the number.
So that would be, where's which one at?
The lien reduction.
What number is that? Notes are everywhere.
It's 6.2, case 12816.
So the,
I'm on page 5.
okay, for the number.
But wait, so we have one motion, do we have a second?
She's going to clarify the motion, I think is what we're waiting on.
Right, that's what I want to do. So then I move to enter an order reducing the amount of the lien to administrative costs of $1,915.20, payable within 30 days, or the lien will revert to its original amount for 6.2.
Okay, motion is made. Is there a second?
And it dies for lack of second, then it would be appropriate now
And now it was.
to speak. Brian wants to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's always difficult negotiating on the dais, and I appreciate all of your consideration for that. What Dr. Janelli has suggested is that he believes that the $25,000 is still probably would make it difficult to divest himself of the properties. So what he's requested is a $10,000 total for both, either way that you want to split it up. I know you've already entered one for $12,500, but he thinks anything more than $10,000 is going to be very difficult to enable him to divest himself of these sites.
Okay.
Thank you.
Board, any questions or comments?
Okay, I'm gonna make a move to enter an order reducing the amount of the lien to administrative cost of $12,500 payable within 30 days, or the lien will revert to its original, and this is for the 1871 Douglas.
Just, let's clarify one thing, it's not administrative costs. It would be, are you saying inclusive of?
Well, including, yeah.
Yes, okay, thank you.
12,005, which includes the administrative cost
Okay.
payable within 30 days.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Nay. 4-2, motion carries. Okay, board, we're going back. Sorry to move you forward and back. We're going back to agenda item 4.6, case number 1821, find respondents Alba, Ponce de Leon at 1661 Lourdes Street, in violation of code for short-term rental and issue an order with the compliance deadline and fine if compliance is not met. Is there anybody here for that case? And it's not a declaration.
It is.
Yay.
Lily Phillips, inspection specialist with the city, and property is in compliance, so I am requesting a declaration of violation.
Very nice. Board, if we could have a declaration.
I move to find the respondent was in violation of the code as referred to in the affidavit in this case. The violation was corrected prior to today's hearing and to enter an order that no fine be imposed. If the respondent repeats the violation, the board may order a fine of up to $500 for each day the violation continues to exist.
I'll give it a second.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Move
case 19-21 is also in compliance. I will also be requesting a declaration of violation.
I move to find the respondent was in violation of the code as referred to in the affidavit in this case. The violation was corrected prior to today's hearing and to enter in order that no fine be imposed. If the respondent repeats the violation, the board may order a fine of up to $500 for each day the violation continues to exist.
Do I have a second? Motion made and seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. 4.8, case 2021.
This is also a declaration.
Oh, very nice. Good work.
I move to find the respondent was in violation of the code as referred to the affidavit. In this case, the violation was corrected prior to today's hearing and to enter an order that no fine be imposed. If the respondents repeat the violation, the board may order a fine of up to $500 for each day the violation continues to exist.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Case 4.9, case 2121, find respondents Frederick Bachman at 1425 Gulf to Bay Boulevard in violation of code for roof maintenance and issue an order with compliance deadline and fine if compliance is not met. Okay? Would you please step forward and give your name and address for the record?
Whoops, sorry.
It's okay.
Frederick Bachman. You want my home address or the address of the property?
Step to you.
Your home address, if you're willing to give it.
1006 Turner Street.
And Mr. Bachman, were you sworn in at the beginning?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. Do you admit or deny these violations?
Admit it.
You admit them? Okay.
Yes, sir.
If you do me a favor, just the way the process works, we're gonna have you sit in this front chair. We're gonna have staff chat with us a little bit, and then we're gonna bring you up to make sure there's clarity and you understand what's going
I
on.
wasn't sure what.
Yeah, no, you're fine. No, that's how the process works, so you're totally fine. That chair right behind you. So board, if we could have a first, please, of the violation?
I move to find the respondent in violation of the code as referred to in the affidavit in this case.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. Yes, sir.
Recommendations?
The question is, does the board need any kind of photos to understand what you're requesting to help them? If not, then just give your recommendation.
Can we?
You want to see the presentation?
Daniel Casson, Code Inspector for the City of Clearwater. This is for case 2121 at 1425 Gulf to Bay Boulevard. There's one violation here, Code Section 3-1502 D1, D3, and D5 for roof maintenance, clean roof, false roof elements. Notice the violation was sent on August 7th of 2020 with a compliance date of September 7th of 2020. And the certified mail receipt was received on August 14th of 2020. This is the property here, 1425 Gulf to Bay Boulevard. Took a look at the property that day. Noticed on the rear of the property, there's a lot of damage to the roof, a lot of chewed up shingles, a lot of aluminum popping up from the underlayment there. This is on July 24th of 2020. Just close to our picture, some shingles falling off. I'd sent out the notice. I'd spoke with Mr. Bachman about the property several times. What his plans were there. He said he was going to get it repaired. He was looking into getting repairs. This is on October 12th of 2020. Went back to the property after the compliance date. I'd been working with him. He said he'd been getting quotes for the property to get it fixed. I kept taking photos along the way. We were in correspondence for some time. Close-up photos of the roof again. Just looks chewed up. I went back on November. After a while, we hadn't spoken a long time. He was supposed to keep me updated what was going on at the property. Hadn't heard anything, so went back on December 2nd, still the same issues with the roof, the little shed in the back as well. The shingles are starting to fail on the property. Decided to bring it to code board. This is on the 14th of December. The front is starting to get worse with some more of the shingles ripping off. The back still in the same shape. Some of the flashing was starting to rip off the shed in the back as well. I went back on the 11th of January. It looks like, I believe this is silicone sealant being put on the roof, trying to prevent further damage. No permit was pulled in the system for any repairs. This is what it looks like. On the back, there was a bunch of buckets and paper, plastic. This was last week. Went by on the 17th of February. Still the same state. Equipment being left on top of the roof. The little shed is still in same shape. And this was yesterday. I went back to take more photos. Just no progress since this repair was attempted.
And no permit has ever been pulled for,
There's no permit for any repairs. I said Mr. Bachman was in contact with me. He said he'd been getting quotes from roofers. He was looking to get it fixed. So I was giving him more and more time. And then eventually, I hadn't heard anything for a long time, so just decided to bring it to the code board.
okay.
Compliance.
And a permit is mandatory for him to do, even if he's doing his own work on his own roof, just to silicone and touch up questionable places, would a permit need to be pulled for that?
I'm not exactly sure on that. I don't know enough about the building permit process, but from what I know, any repairs over $500 in value would require a permit for that sort of thing.
And thank you for the clarification. Board, any questions?
Yeah, is the building occupied?
No, there's nothing going on at the building. There's no business currently happening at the structure.
Not being rented or?
My knowledge, no, I've never seen anything going on there.
Are there active utilities?
I believe right now there are no active utilities at the property.
Additional questions, board? Okay. If we can have, Mr. Bachman, can we have you come up and chat with us a little bit? Thank you for patiently waiting. Okay, so it sounds like there's obviously some roof problems on the property.
Yes.
It looks like you're attempting to do some work on it and stuff. Do we understand there's a permitting process to get that done?
I didn't know there was for what I was doing, no.
Okay, are you doing more than $500 of work, you think?
No, I know I spent more than that on materials, yes.
Yeah, right, so there's a permit process for that. Do you understand what the city's asking for you to do in order to comply with this? Because we don't want to see you start eating $150 a day, starts getting expensive, because it looks like this has been going on for a little bit now.
I'm not being fined yet.
Yeah, not yet, no, sir. We don't want to see that start.
That's a whole different story.
Okay.
Oh, and by the way, there is utilities on.
There is
The
utilities.
electric's on.
What is your plan for getting this property in compliance? How are we going to rectify this?
First of all, I'd like to rectify another problem with the city.
Okay, I'm not sure this may be the
Why not?
the right theater for that, but we
Well, it's already in litigation. I'm already, with the city. I was fined. Well, I wasn't fined. It's in court.
okay.
So I did speak with Mr. Fuino this morning, and I don't have personal knowledge of this, but Mr. Fuino's comments to me were that the litigation he's referring to is from a separate code violation, has nothing to do with this case.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay.
Not with this.
Okay.
But the whole problem is money.
Yeah, right.
Well, there's $125,000 in an escrow account. That's what me and the city's fighting about. I was listening to you folks talking about.
Right.
One question I'd like to have, who do you negotiate with the city to settle something like this?
Mr. Fuino?
I mean the city, not a lawyer, the city.
He represents the city.
I know, but he works for the city, right?
Right.
Because the city keeps telling me my attorney works for me, so I tell him what to do. Just a question.
Well, and I answered, I mean, the person that you have to deal with to resolve your issues is Attorney Quino.
Am I allowed to talk to him personally?
If you're represented, you probably need to go through your attorney, but I don't know the circumstances of your case. You can also go and talk to counsel anytime you want.
The city council? And the city council and I could work out a settlement?
No, well.
I mean, that they could present to your attorney to say yes or no.
What I was suggesting is that at any council meeting, you can stand up during citizens to be heard and plead your case, and they'll take whatever action they think is necessary. But council doesn't really direct staff what to do.
Because I've been talking with Mr. Peaslak.
Ken?
That's Ken? I didn't recognize him, sorry. But him and I have had conversations through time. That was just a question, because I heard the other gentleman
No
talking
problem.
about that. I'm sorry to throw you
Let's
off.
rein you back in so we can keep moving forward with
Okay.
business. Does the board have any additional questions before we hear a city's recommendation and can bring a resolution for Mr. Bachman?
Like, how long have you owned this property?
Not sure, 20 years maybe?
Have you rented it in the past?
No, I ran a business out of it.
What's that business?
It was a surveying business, land surveying.
So you stored equipment in it and it was like an office?
Yes, sir. There's still equipment in there. I still have stuff in the building.
Are you licensed?
Yes, sir.
Still are?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bachman, do you want to keep the building or do you intend to sell it?
Well, I would sell it, but because I'm in trouble with the city, everybody's trying to steal it from me. And no, I won't sell it like that. Maybe it's stubborn and stupid, but
Any
I
other?
had one person offer me $30,000. I said no real quick.
Any additional questions from the board? And we'll have, okay, Mr. Bachman, if you don't mind playing musical chairs with Mr. Kasman, we'll get him back up to give the city's recommendations and we'll make sure it's clear for you.
Alright. Board, for this case, for 1425 North of Bay Boulevard for the violation of roof maintenance, I'm requesting compliance on or before March 24th of 2021, or a fine of $150 per day per violation for each day the violations continue to exist. I'm asking the board to authorize the following. After 3 months from the recordation date of such lien, if the fines and fees remain unpaid, the city attorney's office is authorized to foreclose, collect, or settle such lien using any legal or equitable remedies available under the law. And compliance can be met for the roof maintenance violation by repairing all damage to the roof and removing all items that are not permanent fixtures, such as broken pieces of aluminum or equipment or buckets or anything else of that nature.
Board, any questions?
No.
Daniel, is that back garage included in
Yes,
this?
that is all roofs at both structures on the property, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Bachman, can you step back up? We can make sure there's clarity on what the city's asking you to do. You know, as a board, we can't help with the roof, we can't, give you other options. The only thing we're able to do is help you with time, and that's as far as this board can go. The city's given you till March 24th before any fees start being applied. Do you think you can get those two structures cleaned up and fixed by March 24th?
Don't have a lot of choice, really. So I'll say yeah.
Well, I mean, the
But
board,
I do have a question though before you go. What about the permit? What do I do about that now?
and that's where I was gonna say, is if we're gonna need to go through the permitting process, we may wanna grant a little bit more time. That way, that's not a burden in this case, and I don't know if the board feels the same way.
I think Mr. Kasman will talk to him about it, whether or not it's a permitting issue or if he hires a licensed contractor that can get the permit for him.
Are we comfortable extending it another month to April 24th? So that he has plenty of time to get the permitting?
Okay, so April 24th is what we're looking at. If anyone wants to make a motion, and we'll come back and make sure Mr. Bachman has clarity of that.
I move to enter an order requiring the respondent to correct the violations on or before April 24th. If the respondent does not comply by that date, the board may order a fine of $150 per day per violation. For each day each violation continues to exist, if fines and fees remain unpaid 3 months after such lien is filed, the city is authorized to foreclose, collect, or settle such a lien.
Second that.
A motion is made and seconded. All in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Mr. Bachman, that's about the best the board can do for you to grant you a little bit more time. Just make sure that you completely understand from the city on what it is you need to do. And if you are spending, as you were saying, more than $500, start that permitting process, and then you'll find out from the city whether it has to be a licensed contractor, a licensed roofer. Just make sure you follow all those rules, because we don't want to see you start collecting those fines.
I don't really like standing here, to be honest.
Yeah, you're okay. Well, then, in that case, we'll let you run away now. So you're free to go, and we'll hopefully won't see you again.
I didn't mean, I just
No,
I
you're
just don't
good.
like the period in front of the board,
You're
that's all.
good. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Good luck with everything. Case number 4.10, case 2221, fine respondent 16 Red LLC at 610 South Betty Lane in violation of code for exterior surfaces, and issue an order with the compliance deadline and fine if compliance is not met.
This is also the next one. A different-
Is anyone here to speak to this case? No? Is this a declaration, city?
No, it is
No.
not a declaration.
Okay, if we could have a first, please.
I move to find the respondent in violation of the code as referred to in the affidavit in this case.
I'll second it.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Would you like to just go to the recommendations? Would you like to see the entire presentation?
Is the next case same facts as this one, or is that?
They're two separate parcels. The buildings are just pretty much a mirror of each other. They're owned by the same property owner, the same violation at both properties.
We'll take a look at this one, and then we won't have to see all the photos for the second.
All right, this board, Daniel Casman, Code Inspector for the City of Clearwater. This is for 610 South Betty Lane. It's an apartment complex, sits right across from a park. Went by on September 17th of 2020. Notice there's some mildew, if you can see on the pictures there, on the front of the building. Some algae mildew, just the place needs a little bit of a cleaning. There's some algae mildew on the floors between the first and second floor, and the steps look like they have some algae, and the whole place could just use a cleaning and a new paint job. On the other side too, that's the north side of the property. I went back on October 22nd, had received a phone call from a person saying they represented the owner, asking for clarification of what they needed. And I said, the property just needs to be cleaned. Anywhere you have missing stucco, the property just needs some love. You clean it up. They said they would take care of it. And I hadn't received any more information from that person until 2 days ago, when the owner of the property, Red LLC, called me up and asked me what was going on and what they needed to do. And I told them, they said, I can't believe you're going to tell me I need to clean my building. So they said they could not make it here today. They're operating out of Orlando, Florida. So this is October 22nd, went back after compliance day. There was still just needed to be cleaned. The same areas were in trouble. Went back on November 2nd, the same area is just still bad. December 1st. And then on the north side, December 1st, still bad condition. I started going around the back of the property after realizing there was a little hidden parking lot back there. And that's when I started to notice more issues in the property. There's some cracked and peeling paint on the back, more algae issues, damage to the roof on the back of the property as well. There they could not see from the front. I went back on January 4th. The same areas are still full of mildew. Apparently, according to the owner, there used to be a carport back there. They used to shade all those parking spots, and when they tore it out, they just never replaced the stucco in that area. And this is more of the west side of the building in the back of the structure on the 22nd of January. Good shot again at the back. This was the posting of the affidavit for the hearing. They didn't sign for the green card. Just a faraway shot on the 11th of February. Still the same spots are in trouble. Carport in the back, rear of the property just need to be cleaned up. Minor repairs done to the structure. And this was 2 days ago on the 22nd when I went back. Just they need to clean up the property. The owner also, and if you want to go through the other PowerPoint presentation, the sister structure at 616 South Betty Lane, the screens and the guards are missing from the second floor. I've gone over there and spoken to people, and they're hanging out on the second floor of the labia, and they look like they could fall right out. But the owner did apply for permits to repair that issue. At the same time, they said to me, I'm not going to do anything about the exterior until I finished working and putting up all the guardrails for the stairs and the second floor balconies. Because they said they didn't want to do double work. So, for 610 South Betty Lane, for exterior surfaces and requesting compliance on or before March 24th of 2021, or a fine of $150 per day per violation for each day the violations continue to exist. We're asking the board to authorize the following. After 3 months from the recordation date of such lien, if the fines and fees remain unpaid, the city attorney's office is authorized to foreclose, collect, or settle such lien using any legal or equitable remedies available under the law. In compliance, we met for exterior surfaces at 610 South Betty Lane by cleaning and removal of all mildew, mold, and algae, removal of chipped paint and repainting, and repairing any damaged or missing stucco.
And is this the same recommendation you're going to give for 4.11?
Yes,
March 24th and
they're
150th?
identical, yeah.
Okay. Board, any additional questions?
Did you recommend the replacing of those screens on the second floor?
That was being handled by Nilda Espinoza. It was a housing case. And they've, like I said, they've applied for the permits to make all those repairs.
Have they?
Both of them are in the system for both buildings, yes.
Have you got an estimated time of when they will be repaired?
I don't know exactly on that.
The child can slip right through the
Yeah, that's a
hole.
safety concern, that's for sure. Board, any additional questions? If not, we can make, you want these motions separate?
Yes,
Two
please.
separate motions for 4.10 and 4.11?
So I move to enter an order requiring the respondent to correct the violations on or before March 24th. If the respondent does not comply by that date, the board may order a fine of $150 per day per violation for each day each violation continues to exist. If fines and fees remain unpaid 3 months after such lien is filed, the city is authorized to foreclose, collect, and settle such a lien.
A second.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. That's 4.10. 4.11, we did not have a first for, so if we can have a first for that before we make the second motion.
I move to find the respondent in violation of the code as referred to in the affidavit in this case.
Second.
Motion and made and seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. So if we can have a second for that, 4.11.
I move to enter an order requiring the respondent to correct the violations on or before March 24th. If the respondent does not comply by that date, the board may order a fine of $150 per day per violation for each day each violation continues to exist. If the fines and fees remain unpaid 3 months after such lien is filed, the city is authorized to foreclose, collect, or settle such lien.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Kasman.
Thank you.
Item 4.12, case 3621, find respondents Giordano Advisors, Inc. at 909 Beckett Street in violation of code for unsafe building and issue an order with compliance deadline and fine if compliance is not met. Is there anyone here to speak to this case?
They are not here today.
Okay. If we can have a motion for that.
I move to find the respondent in violation of the code as referred to in the affidavit in this case.
I'll second.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And then let's just remember, when we move forward with this one, we'll have to revert to the unsafe buildings motions for the second one.
Good afternoon, Jason Cantrell, Building Inspector for the City of Clearwater. This is for the property at 909 Beckett Street. We are here today for an unsafe structure. I cited Code Section 3-1502A for property maintenance requirements. in section 3-1503B2 for a public nuisance. Notice of violation was sent on May 27th, 2020, and again, a copy of that violation along with a notice of hearing was sent on 10/30 of 2020. Those had a compliance date from the date of the receipt of each notice, 7 days to obtain a permit, and subsequently 20 days to complete the work. Certified mail receipt was not received for the first notice. However, USPS website tracking showed that it was delivered to a person at the owner's address. And then the second notice, which was sent in October 2020, that receipt, the certified mail receipt, was received on November 10th, 2020. And then an affidavit of posting for today's hearing was done on December 28th, 2020. This, I'm not going to read through this, but this is a copy of the code sections I cited if anybody would like to glance at those. Okay, this property is off of North MLK. It is just south of Fairmont Street and just to the east of Myrtle Avenue. This is an overview of the front of the property. There's actually, it's a rental property, and there's actually 2 rental units in this property. The unsafe condition pertains to that bump out section you see in the back. And what happened is the neighbor's tree had fallen on top of the home. With all the debris in the yard, I was unable to get a good picture showing the whole view of the property, so it's kind of a close picture, but you can see the damage to the roof truss, the roof system, and the rafters. Here's just a closer shot showing the damage there. The tenants told me that there was no damage inside, however, it is leaking from the rain. The tenant that originally called this in is no longer there. We've gone through 2 additional tenants since then. And that's just another angle of the damage. Any questions?
Questions from the board?
You said that there's 2 new tenants? that rented-
Correct.
So they actually rented something with a tree on it?
Correct. This is this home is part of the HUD program, so these folks rent off of photos that they see, and by the time they get there, they have already signed a lease and paid that deposit.
Other,
HUD allows that?
I'm sorry?
HUD allows that?
I do not know.
Sounds borderline criminal to me, but.
Another case going somewhere that we don't know about.
there's tenants in it now.
Correct.
Jeez. Any additional questions from the board, or we can take his recommendation and move forward? Seems pretty self-explanatory on this one.
For compliance to be met for the unsafe structure, they need to repair or replace any areas where deterioration or damage exists to meet current Florida building codes. Complete demolition of the structure is also an option for compliance, but all work must be properly permitted. We are requesting compliance on or before March 21st, 2020, or a fine of $250 per day. Bear in mind, this is a life safety issue at a tenant-occupied property. So again, fine of $250 per day that the violation continues to exist. Additionally, we're asking the board to authorize the city of Clearwater to enter onto the property to correct the violation by any means necessary and any reasonable costs to be applied as liens against the property. After 3 months from the recordation date of such lien, if the fines and fees remain unpaid, the city attorney's office is authorized to foreclose, collect, or settle such lien using any legal or equitable remedies available under the law.
Very good.
I move to enter an order requiring the respondent to correct the violations on or before March 24th. If the respondent does not comply by that date, the board may order a fine of $250 per day. For each day the violation continues to exist, and the city may take all reasonable actions, including entry onto the property, to bring the property into compliance and charge a respondent with all costs, which will become a lien on the property. If costs, fines, and fees remain unpaid 3 months after such lien is filed, the city is authorized to foreclose, collect, or settle such lien.
I second.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. A quick question regarding that, it's probably more for staff. When we do have a case like this, and obviously it's beyond just a safety concern, there's a legality component being questioned, especially with HUD and things like that. Does the city get involved in that process and notify police or HUD, or do they just let that kind of play its course?
I'm not really sure. That might be something that goes through the Housing and Development Department,
Okay.
Economic Development.
Yeah, that house must be removed from its database of available.
Yeah,
But there's not a set process in place for these and a
Not
chain
that-
of command where it gets fed from here and pushed to here to make, yeah, okay.
not that I'm aware of. I mean, that's something that's outside of the city's control, and so usually in those type of situations, you know, an inspector or someone else may make a complaint, but there's no guarantee that anything will happen.
Yeah, right.
I'd
Interesting.
be happy to call them and
Yeah, and
let them know what's going on.
I mean, because I'm sure the families moving into it, or they're the ones getting burned, and then they're stuck because they've paid their deposit.
Yeah.
They're locked
That's
into
probably
a check
why
that's
they're
not theirs. They have nowhere to go, nor the money to get into somewhere else where, you know, if they weren't in that process to begin with, they'd be able to just go somewhere else, but they can't. So they're stuck, and by the time we see this again, it'll probably be the third or fourth family that have been burned by it, right? That's unfortunate.
Only in the city versus
Huh,
HUD.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Affidavits and non-compliance. Is there anybody here to speak to agenda items 5.1 through 5.18? No? Okay, so we can just go ahead and group these agenda affidavits of compliance together?
Yes.
Okay, board, if we could have a motion for that and just tie all these, case 5.11, 5.12 through 5.18 together.
I move to accept the affidavits of compliance as listed, 5.11 through 5.18.
Correct, motion is made.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries, thank you. Agenda item 5.2, continued from November 18th, 2020, case 5420, accept the affidavits of non-compliance for respondents Thessaloniki Kanatosis Anglad at 1936 North Betty Lane for permits. Is anyone here to speak to this case? No. And, is Ms. Espinosa here? Do we need anything presented, or do we just,
No, you could just, unless there's any additional information, you could just make a motion to accept
To
the
it.
affidavit of non-compliance.
okay, board?
Does she want to speak?
No, she's good.
I move to accept the affidavit of non-compliance and issue an order that imposes fines and states if fines and fees remain unpaid 3 months after such lien is filed, the city is authorized to foreclose, collect, or settle such lien.
Motion is made, seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. 5.4 and 5.5, anybody here to this case? Can we accept these in one motion?
No, you should do each one.
Do each one separate?
Yes, please.
Okay, Ms. Espinosa, 5.4, there's nothing we need to hear. Thank you.
I move to accept the affidavit of non-compliance and issue an order that imposes fines and states if fines and fees remain unpaid 3 months after such lien is filed, the city is authorized to foreclose, collect, or settle such lien.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And the last one. There's one more.
And the last case, 9720,
No, 120, 120, which one?
case 120-120.
That one.
Okay, I move to accept the affidavit of
Wait,
non-compliance.
Does he have
this
any?
gentleman here on that?
He's here for affidavits of compliance. He just wanted to verify that everything.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Make sure.
With the roof, the fence, and the motorhome and the boat, I remember that one. I'm glad that was all taken care of. Thank you. Yeah. You're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I move to accept the affidavit of non-compliance and issue an order that imposes fines and states if fines and fees remain unpaid 3 months after such lien is filed, the city is authorized to foreclose, collect, or settle such lien.
I'll second that.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Is there any other business for the board?
Nothing from the city, right?
Very good. Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you, staff, as always. Much appreciated. Everyone have a great week. Thank you.